Today on Primary Care, childhood obesity is plaguing African Americans at a rate disproportionate to the rest of the country.
Parents have to realize that they play a major role in this problem.
Hello, and welcome to Primary Care. I'm Dr. Lonnie Joe. Childhood obesity is a growing epidemic in this country. African American children suffer disproportionately from being overweight and obese, which puts them at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Here to talk to us about childhood obesity and its link to diabetes is Dr. Colleen Buggs Saxton. Dr. Buggs is a pediatrician who specializes in endocrinology, and she is also assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics and Physiology at the Wayne State University School of Medicine. Dr. Buggs, welcome to Primary Care.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you for joining us today. We're pleased to have you. Childhood obesity amongst African Americans has increased at alarming rates. From 1986 to 98, 120% increase in obese kids running around in just 12 years. What are we doing wrong?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we don't realize that's happening to the children. And one of the most important things is we're not recognizing when a child is overweight. And we need to educate families, even pediatricians, about how to identify these children. And it really is very important from the time that child is born and as they grow that you really monitor what they eat and make sure that they're very active.
So basically, we're talking about a parental responsibility.
Yes. Parents have to realize that they play a major role in this problem. And also, it's important that the doctors that take care of these children inform parents as early as possible when they recognize signs that that child is overweight.
So, socioeconomic factors for obesity, environmental factors for obesity, we moved into that arena in terms of identifying things that are actually contributing to this growing problem.
We have identified the problem is giving that information to the community and helping them change some of those factors. We know that consuming large amounts of sweetened beverages contributes to obesity, but still we find children who still consume large quantities of sweetened beverages.
The development of type 2 diabetes in this population is a totally preventable disease as far as I'm concerned, but certainly something that is ravaging the adolescent population in this country. Where are we going?
Once again, I think there's a lack of education that this is the form of diabetes that is preventable. I think in our communities there's an acceptance of type 2 diabetes. Grandmother had it, mother had it, uncle has it. So some families feel it's inevitable. However, when I meet these families in the clinic, parents are very concerned about diabetes in children.
So what is the advice to the parent and the patient in terms of the weight and the disease state?
We have to change how we live our lives in terms of what we eat and being active. You can't expect to consume large quantities of unhealthy foods and be healthy. It's just not going to happen. And it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be very difficult. But not only does the child have to make a change, but the entire family, you know, they really have to get on board with the child to help them be healthier.
Especially when they reach and approach the teenage years, when they begin to make decisions for themselves. It's very hard for a kid walking home from school to turn down the big quadruple size of soda pop as opposed to, you know, a small bottle of water, which is going to be more than the pop itself in the convenience store or the gas station. So education becomes a key in terms of helping them understand what choices to make. However, we're shoving it in their face almost to say, listen, you know, hey, here's the easy way out, and they're taking it.
And it's less expensive, like you
Very much
said.
so.
And so I think there are economical factors that have to be addressed as well. And I believe there's a supply and demand. I think if we demanded healthier foods, if owners of stores realize that you're not going to buy the soda, you know, and you would buy other things, then perhaps that would change what they offer you in their store to buy. But you're absolutely right. There are multiple factors that contribute to childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes.
People in this community argue all the time whether or not we're in a food desert. But I guess it certainly depends on what you have available to you and what you can afford. Do you see that as being one of the problems in terms of where the average African American adolescent lives in this community and what their choices are?
You know, I appreciated this particular issue when I was in residency in Chicago. And also when I was doing my pediatric endocrinology fellowship, I would counsel families about, you know, choosing other options like sugar-free Kool-Aid. And one parent said to me, Dr. Buggs, do you realize how much that costs? It's much easier to buy the regular Kool-Aid and add sugar. And so I had to change how I counseled families. And also I looked in our neighborhood around the clinic to see what options there are. You know, are there options to buy low-fat milk versus whole milk or skim milk? And that really enlightened me about what are the options that these patients have in their community.
So basically, the socio-economic problem on the social and the economic side is playing a big factor, a big role in terms of even the choices that children make for snacks, for food, sometimes for breakfast and dinner.
If they eat breakfast,
If they eat
absolutely.
breakfast.
And then one other issue is some children are eating several meals in school. And it's interesting when you ask them what the options are at school. And I know some school systems are trying to provide healthier options for children, but there's still more work that needs to be done even in that area.
So would you say with all these problems that we're having with the adolescent age group, are they likely to carry this weight into adulthood with them?
Definitely, yes. We know that even at the age of 10, if you are obese, you have a 70 to 80% of being obese as an adult.
70 to 80?
Yes.
Some of them don't have a chance.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate because by the time they reach me in the clinic, I don't want to say it's too late, but it's going to be extremely challenging. And we have to really make significant changes to brighten their future. And it's very sad.
Are you getting the buy-in from the parents in terms of this obesity discussion?
I am. I think parents are open, and I try to present it with a level of sensitivity, but also a level of seriousness. You know, that if we don't change, other problems are going to occur, or the likelihood of them is definitely higher.
Are we doing a better job in terms of advising people on just how to eat? Let's set aside the access issue. Let's assume that we have access. You know, we just had last year a recent increase in the recommendations of fruits and vegetables from 6 to 9 per day for the average person in this country. Are we making progress in those arenas and saying, listen, you really need to get more of your protein from plant instead of animal-based sources in actuality to be healthier and going forward and starving off diseases like type 2 diabetes? Is that message getting through in the pediatric population?
The message is getting through, but the behavior is not changing. I'm still surprised that children don't eat certain things. If you ask them to list like 5 different vegetables they eat, they struggle, or fruit, and or even milk. And so they are aware that they need to eat certain things, but there's a disconnect and change of the behavior to get to the goal of what they need to eat.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about treatment a little bit. We'll be right back. Stay with us for more primary care.
You're doing great. We're gonna try this again, okay?
Okay.
Wheels, pedals, handlebar, brakes. Sit up straight, keep your weight in the center, keep your eyes on the road, hands on the grips, butt in the seat. If we feel ourselves falling, what do?
Just keep pedaling.
Good girl. Now remember, it's all about balance and steering. Steer with your hands, steer with your body. Steer into the corners and you stay out of trouble. And the bell's your buddy, so go ahead and ding that. All right, ready? Here we go. Pedal, honey, pedal. There you go, you're a bike rider.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back. I'm here with pediatrician and researcher Dr. Colleen Buggs, who is also an assistant professor at Wayne State University School of Medicine here in Detroit, and we're talking about childhood obesity. Dr. Buggs, explain to us, really, for our viewers in the audience, exactly what is diabetes?
Diabetes is a disorder. It's a chronic medical problem that develops when the body stops making insulin or stops responding to the insulin that's made. In pediatrics, one of the most common causes of diabetes is when the body stops making insulin, so that's type 1 diabetes. We're finding an increasing number of children, because they are obese, are developing type 2 diabetes, and that's a form of diabetes when you can still make insulin, but your body ignores it. So there's insulin resistance. And over time, if that process continues, your body will not be able to make enough insulin to control your blood sugar, and so your blood sugar level continues to increase, and you develop diabetes. Sometimes we can treat these children with the medications to help the body respond better to the insulin that they make. There are other times when these children present very sick, and we have to actually give them insulin until their body recovers. And a small percentage of these children will be able to produce enough insulin themselves that they won't need to continue insulin, but then some of them will need to continue taking insulin.
So what are you recommending for treatment? We still believe in diet and exercise as first line, but unfortunately we have to move on after a point, and sometimes initially with medications, as you say, for these patients. What are you recommending for these kids who are coming in with this disease?
Yeah, so depending on how high the blood sugar is, we may start with a pill, metformin. Sometimes we have to start with insulin and then add metformin later. Unfortunately, in pediatrics, as opposed to adult endocrinology and patients with type 2 diabetes, we don't have as many oral agents that we can use in pediatrics. I'm actually involved with a study to look at newer agents that may be useful in children with type 2 diabetes. So diet and exercise is always first line, but you're absolutely right. A lot of times we know that's not working. However, we still need to encourage people to change their lifestyle. And then we'll add metformin, and in some cases metformin, a combination with insulin, or just insulin by itself. But lifestyle is extremely important because we have to find a way to decrease the weight gain.
Are the children more compliant than some of the adults we've been working with for years in this disease state?
Unfortunately not. I think that the children who are taking insulin, the younger children, because they require more adult supervision, that increases compliance. But unfortunately in the adolescent patient, sometimes they don't even want to take the pill. And so diabetes may worsen, and we'll have to start them on insulin. It is very, very challenging, and I want to also say the reason why it's challenging, because compared to other diseases, diabetes is the only disease where the medication that you take, the dose changes every day, throughout the day. And it's very complex, and I think there's an underappreciation for the complexity of that, on top of being an adolescent.
I hate to ask this question because we don't even want to think that some of these kids will get to this point. Is there a place for bariatric surgery in the pediatric population or the adolescent population?
There have been studies, because unfortunately when you talk about the spectrum of obesity, there are some children at the beginning of obesity, and then you have children who are severely obese, and we have to provide other treatment options for those children. And so there was a study that just came out looking at the impact of bariatric surgery among these more severely obese children. And so it has a role. We are concerned about some of the nutritional deficiencies associated with it. So these children are going to have to be followed for a long period of time to make sure they're compliant with those medications. But they do have some promising and very impressive results with regards to reversing some of the comorbidities associated with obesity.
Vitamin D. Forever we thought it was a vitamin, we now know it's a hormone. But I am just appalled at some of the single-digit numbers that we see in African American children in this community in terms of vitamin D levels. Is there a relationship between vitamin D deficiency, obesity, diabetes? Are we looking at a three-headed monster here?
There's no clear evidence of a cause and effect. It's hard to tease out what's causing one thing when they're all linked together. You're absolutely right. We are finding very low levels in children and people in general. And it's unfortunate because of diet also.
So something to keep on the radar and continue to watch. Okay. A recent study, and it came out during Obesity Week, pointed out that Latinos, African American parents, a relationship between the stress level of the parent and obesity in the child. Can you comment on that?
There are multiple factors that contribute to obesity, and whether or not stress in and of itself is a major player has not really been clearly studied, but it definitely is connected somehow. And when you think about all of the other socioeconomic factors involved with parents who are obese, families who are obese, children are obese, I'm not surprised. However, I think that it provides insight into other areas that we need to address in treating obesity and recognizing obesity. Yes.
Very interesting. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more primary care right after this.
If I got to go to college, oh my goodness. I like discovering new things. You get to see what works for you and what doesn't. That helps you evolve as a person. You get to make like a supernova of skill or talent or whatever it is. I've always wanted to go to college. I just feel like that's my destiny. My name is Queen, and I am your dividend.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No? Whew.
Welcome back. We're here talking to a pediatrician and researcher here at the Wayne State University in Detroit, Dr. Colleen Buggs, who specializes in endocrinology and also obesity directed at children, which has led us to some very interesting discussion concerning the African American child, obesity, and how it leads to diabetes. There are all kinds of stigmata associated with these disease states. Are you seeing some social issues amongst the pediatric age group because the child is overweight? Is it being addressed? Is it getting worse? What's going on?
I'm definitely seeing it when I meet patients in the clinic. I just had a 9-year-old patient, very young patient, and was devastated by the fact of being overweight. And we don't have enough resources to really address these issues, I think, adequately. When patients come to clinic, you're more focused on the effects, physiologically, blood pressure, blood sugar, insulin levels, cholesterol levels, but you don't have the adequate resources to, spend time with that child who's in tears, and also to provide resources for the family. How do you deal with being isolated in school? Even in homes, you'd be very surprised. Other children who are not overweight or obese, even within a family. And then participating in activities that would really help that child be more active. That's challenging. They may not be as accepted. So it's very difficult medical issue for these families and children.
Are you seeing depression in and around these discussions and these clinic visits, not only with the patient, but with the parents also?
Yes, and I also feel that for parents, there is a level of guilt, because oftentimes the parent is obese and overweight. And
yeah, even the pets turn out to be obese sometimes.
Yeah, so there is that element of depression, yes.
How you just touched on the inability sometimes to provide the next step of services for patients like this, especially in the counseling role. So you're wearing multiple hats.
Yes, but I have to take time to address it as best that I can in that clinic visit. I'm not going to let a child walk out crying or a parent walk out crying. I just can't let that happen. So I try to provide, sometimes we have information, social workers who can contact the family at a later date to give them information about additional services. But still you wonder, how is that child really doing? What's happening to them?
We're sitting here in this phenomenal facility here, the Integrated Bioscience Center here at Wayne State University. What kind of research are you conducting in this location now?
So I'm part of the Diabetes Obesity Team Science Group, and so I work with other researchers. I actually do basic science research in a laboratory upstairs. And so what I'm very excited about is to link with other researchers here at Wayne State. Dr. Granneman is doing some studies looking at fat metabolism. So we're learning about, on the molecular levels, different proteins and how they interact and impact fat metabolism. And with Dr. Leff, he's looking at some environmental factors and obesity and type 2 diabetes. My work is looking at another endocrine organ, the pituitary gland, and its potential role in fat metabolism and diabetes. I have an animal model that I'm looking at to try to tease out additional new factors that may provide some insights into the process that leads to diabetes.
Well, you certainly should be congratulated on this facility right here in the heart of the community. Speaking of the animals, are they housed here in the facility at all? Is that another location?
Yeah, there is an animal facility here in this building. So it actually facilitates us to do the intricate work that we need to do. It's really nice to have the psychologists and the people who specialize in modifying behavior just on the same floor as you are or below. And so it's just been a wonderful experience over the past few months to be here and to be part of the transformation of Detroit and to know that the work that we're doing really impacts the people in the community.
It's changing the perception of research. It's also changing the scope of research. I mean, this integrative concepts that we're dealing with is really beginning to be brought out in a facility like this. Tell us a little bit more about the future. What's coming down the pike? Are we going to be looking at a new pill or a new procedure? We love the bells and whistles when it comes to medicine now. What's happening?
I encourage my patients, we have to really change our behavior. You have to eat better. I really emphasize eating food, really recognize what you put in your body. I think what's coming down the pipeline is more transparency about the research and the studies that we're doing and really getting that information to the community. I think it's also important for us to learn from the community what's working, what's not working. I also feel that we need to integrate more into the community, because we may find some very interesting things here in this building, but how do we encourage patients to utilize that on a day-to-day basis? So I want to know what their community is like. I want to go out there. I want to go to the churches, to the community centers, and make sure that what we discover that they can take home and utilize, and hopefully they don't have to come see me in the endocrine clinic.
How about that? As long as we're just talking to each other, we're going to get the same conversation, but when we expand that scope of the conversation, we may be very surprised what we find. Thank you again for joining us on Primary Care, Dr. Buggs. We'll have you back again.
Thank you.
To truly address childhood obesity in the African American community, we must truly have a community-wide outreach strategy that educates African American families and increases awareness, and we must also create an agenda designed to change policies and programs at the federal, state, and local levels. For Primary Care, I'm Dr. Lonnie Joe.